So my name is Henk Hobelink. I'm from working with grain here in Barcelona. I just would like to draw attention to an element I've been missing in the discussion, which is the recent food crisis and the link to the discussion we are having over the penetration of capital in food commodities, and also linked to the whole discussion about food sovereignty. We are seeing clearly that different people analyzing the food crisis and the causes of the food crisis in different ways, including the Indians eating too much meat these days. The factor which has not been looked at very much or analyzed at all is how the financial speculation in international markets have actually caused the food prices to rise and have had set up a whole series of other impacts, which now mean that 100 million people more are going hungry every day. That's, I think, is a factor which is important to link in with our discussion about conservation and about environmental services. Also, if you look at the responses to the food crisis, I think we really have to analyze what's happening. Apart from the usual more free market, more new technologies, etc., discourses, you get a rediscovery, and I think that's very important for our discussion here, of small farmers as a main actor in producing food. The type of aid, which is billions and billions of dollars, which are now going to be directed towards small farmer food production, is tremendous. There's not been, we have nothing seen similar compared to the first Green Revolution, really. The way that's going to happen, and it's happening already, is by basically sending chemical fertilizer, by sending hybrid seeds, and by reorganizing, privatizing at the local level the delivery institutions. I think unless we look at the food crisis in this way, because everybody says it's very good that there's now more attention for small farmers, but the way we see really happening is the official response to the food crisis is a new wave of throwing small farmers off their land, of environmental destruction through the use of more chemical technologies, and basically of more of the same in terms of financial management. I haven't, with the type of organizations we sort of link in with and work with, we have been debating this issue a lot. I haven't heard very much from the environmental movements, including IUCN, about that this is a problem and that this should be taken as a serious issue, because it has implications not only for small farmers, agroecology, but also for parks, etc., etc. So I would like to check or to get some feedback on how come we're not more together on this, how come we haven't heard from IUCN or from some of the other environmental movements a stronger stand on the response to the food crisis.
I'm Boots from the Philippines. I want to bring up this opportunity with our colleagues that I think conservation mechanism or institution have failed for a century, and sustainable development is a dream, and it's no longer happening. And I think the flavor of Barcelona on seas conservation, cooperation, clean development mechanism is really how money would try to burn us all, and hope it will not manipulate like it manipulated food in the Philippines when rice crisis happened, and I think happened globally. And also it's difficult now to sustain food because we are in the bullseye of the typhoon alley in the Pacific. So it's difficult to regenerate rice or food. So these are the things that how these colleagues could influence the forum, could question now the system of conservation. Also our tribal leaders in the UN that had dealt with oil and mining companies, and how this mix of money of development, like the Wall Street money, is mixed up with the money with conservation, with what we are working in the ground, and how we should fight for compensation for those who suffer now that we cannot have this food sovereignty or food security to come through in reality, in the next maybe a decade or maybe in the next half a century. And that's so immense food inequality happening in the world. So these are the things that I should appeal to you if you can brought up in various forums that we'll be joining in the next few days. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One of our speakers has to leave. Alejandro has asked to leave. He's got some important matters to deal with. So you've seen Alejandro, and he'll be available later today for further discussion. But I have a question here. Can you?
Yeah, it's
Could you
more.
come up?
It's going with the commentary as well, and talking about how we frame these discussions. I liked a lot the discussion about we have to question market-based approaches. I think that along with the compensation for environmental services or ecosystem services is one argument. Another that I've been actually surprised at how little they're talking about, along with the food crisis and making that discussion more obvious, is I expected actually at this conference more discussion about, in the light of climate change, what it means to go talk about adaptation instead of mitigation, because mitigation is very much stuck in a market-based approach. And that I feel like we can start looking about a right-based approach. When you talk about adaptation, you start talking about, well, who are the most vulnerable, and building on those communities instead of bring the justice issue in. And so I've been actually really frustrated in some of these, like there was a discussion yesterday, positioning from developing countries, and it wasn't really discussing this, and I think part of it is that there's a really strong realm on still the mitigation market-based approaches that are overarching and not allowing kind of another way of discussing this, and that needs to be brought in as a discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Hence the importance of this space. I think you've been waiting for some time. Apologize for keeping you.
My name is Pavlos Georgiadis. I'm an ethnobotanist in the Institute for Agricultural Sociology in the University of Hohenheim in Germany. I'm very glad to have here the gentleman from India and the gentleman from Peru, but I have to make a comment. These two countries are freedom lands, and I've heard their comments against the market economy, and I agree that they haven't done much for the people that really need it in this world. But if you go in other countries like China, Laos, and Vietnam, they also have some pretty crazy governments there, you know. These are countries that like notions of like civil society and like social participation and organization are out of question. And as we speak, vast amounts of land are being slashed and burned in these countries. And land is being converted into rubber monoculture. One single tree species from Latin America growing in China, Laos, Vietnam, all over Southeast Asia. So this necessitates that like also us, but also disciplines like political philosophy need to investigate all the 1,000 possibilities between the two systems. Do I have 1 minute? Food sovereignty. Food sovereignty. We heard it about like in the developing world, but we have another issue here in the West. Like we are lacking food sovereignty also here in Barcelona, in Frankfurt, in New York, in London, in the very hubs where global decision making is taking place. We are being colonized, and the most dangerous is that we don't even know it, because no one speaks about it in lecture theaters. Private television doesn't talk about it, and unfortunately, this Congress is not a Coca-Cola free zone, you know. So this necessitates the change that we need to overcome here in the West also. We need to make this, to establish this intrinsic link between our plate and the planet, that what we eat here has a profound impact in developing countries, in the culture, in the landscape, in the ecology. And I guess I'm sure there are like very many clever guys in this building that can get together and organize and like propose something, so we can use globalization in order to enhance localization, self-directed models of development in regions like yours and other regions in the world, enhance democracy, what the demos is, the power of the demos. And as a suggestion, I think, is the organization into local eco-gastronomic groups in schools, in universities, in organizations, in companies, that we will question all this colonization that subliminally comes into our plate and into our organisms. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, the concept of food sovereignty is highly relevant for the North too.